All right, fellas, so I got this Honda Harmony. It's an old one. It's in pretty good shape. All right, it's got a Kohler engine on it. No, it doesn't have a Kohler. Fellas, wait till you see this thing. It's like the Honda Kohler clone. Anyway, that's besides the point. All right, picked it up. I don't know, I've had it for about a year or so. And we got to get it cleaned up, so stick with me on this, right? If you own one, anybody out there owns one, and they want to know, like, everything to do to it, I'm going to go through everything. So before I tell you what I'm going to do, I just want to let you know that somebody had this, and all of the settings and the tweaks and everything that you would normally do in the carburetor and on the governor adjustments, throttle, what have you, somebody had been in there poking at stuff. Other than that, it's in good shape. Replaced the tire that was bad. We're going to go through everything, the valves, really tight clearances on the valves, so I'll give you the specs on that as well. So we're going to go through the carburetor. We're going to make this thing run. We're going to make it sweet because it's good stock, good bones. Plastic deck. Go through the carburetor, fix the tweaks and the issues. We're going to go through the valves. We're going to clean everything up, get the blades all sharpy, and just kind of go through the whole thing. So if you guys are interested in watching this one, it is a little bit long because we're going through the whole thing, right? It's not a quickie, you know. It's let's take care of this thing. It's a revival. All right. So instead of me blabbering, all right, let's get to it. All right, with the Honda Harmony, there's one screw over here, okay, that holds on the top. In fact, I'm going to put that screw back in a minute. And then we'll take these off, and then the gas tank will peel back. Now, I don't know if this tank is clean or not, but yeah, there's filth in there, fellas. All right, we're going to take the tank off. It's all on top of the screen. There's probably some of it in the carburetor. Let me take this off, put that screw back. We're going to get everything set up. All right, take the blades off. I got the other wheels. Let's see what's in here. That's a good, oh, that's perfect. Well, fresh tune-up, all ready to go. We'll leave it all like this for now. And just get everything clean. It's actually in pretty good shape. We'll get all the wheels, you know, spit polish with some super clean, get the deck cleaned off. There's yellowing and tarnish on the deck. We'll get that off too with some super clean. And you see some of this is actually a bit of rust and oxides. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna super clean first. A little bit of a brush, and then I'm going to use the electric pressure washer because we don't need a lot of pressure here. And if that staining doesn't come off, either I'm going to go to more of a bleach, or we're going to try Super Clean's wheel cleaner, wheel and rim, because it's got acids in it, and that'll remove a lot of what you see on rims is an iron oxide. It's like a rust because they put iron and other metals and organic things into brake pads and shoes. And that's how you get the grip, right? But what that does is it pisses all over the rim, tarnishes everything up. And so if we can't get that off straight away, we'll try that, all right? We'll see how it comes out. And it'll probably remove a little bit of rust from here too. All right, we may want to go in there and check that as well because it's probably been a long time. All right, let me keep going. Let's get a little peek in here. Hey, take a look around here, see the dirt? That's not bad. It's the Honda GXV something, is it 40? I forget, these are smaller. Remember, there's no drive system on this, so it doesn't need to be that big. Very similar to a Kohler engine in a lot of ways. They probably copied that. But we want to get down in there, right, just a little super clean. First, we're going to rinse everything, right? We're going to get everything, you know, washed down. And let me take a look at the blades. We're probably going to want to take the blades off anyway, get them cleaned individually, and then we can sharpen them and get in there good. Let's turn on its side. You know what I mean? Blades aren't too bad considering they've been sitting on the ground. You can see that rust. But we'll get everything washed off. Let me pull these blades. We'll get this deck super clean. Other than that, I don't see any cracks that are jumping out at me, but that's in part why we like to do the full wash, because then we can see everything clearly. But a lot of times you will see cracks and they kind of tend to jump out at you, especially when they're bad. But this is a nice, simple machine, and it would give very long life in this configuration. All right, we've chosen our weapon, just a standard super clean for this run, because it's not that bad, and you can see it's already loosening up all that yellow, right? It's almost like just staining. It's like nicotine stains. All right, I think it's all we're really going to need, and we'll get to the wheels and the underneath, but I always give everything a rinse first with the pressure washer. Knock off all the schlem. All right, I got some other stuff to clean, fellas, so we're going to let that sit. I'm working on the bag. Quick first pass with the bag, then I put a little super clean on the bag. And then if it's really bad, we'll go with a little bleach mixture. You can also use a bit of bleach with a little bit of Dawn. It works in pretty good. I'm going to do this bag first while I'm doing other things, and then I do want to clean up this bag because it's the only 2 bags of this type for Honda. This one, you know, it almost looks gray, but I don't know. It's hard to say. There's so much. We really need to clean it because it's almost got like scaling on it. It's oxidizing. So these are the older style bags, and I definitely I want to save this one. We can put it away. All right, so this is our next weapon, the all-wheel cleaner, and we can see the staining on it. Now, I don't know if it's going to help, but we've super cleaned with the regular super clean, you know, the degreaser, and there's just a bit of staining on it, but it looks good. We're pretty much clean. Super clean. Get yours now. Available at local stores. All right, so we got the tank all cleaned out, dried. This thing looks beautiful. We're going to pull the carburetor off here. All right, so I'm going to do that. We're going to rebuild it. Go through. We got these 2 bolts and this bolt here. I got my blades done. All right. So these are all nice. I swapped out the bad wheels. I took everything off. I cleaned in here real good. I already lubricated it and oiled it, but we're probably going to want to do that again one more time. I got the bags cleaned up. So this is the first bag. And you can see it came out really nice, and we'll get a better look at it in a little while. This is the one that, as you can see, it has almost like a gray look to it. It was pretty dirty. I didn't get too crazy. It's got a little wear here. We can fix that. And on the top, it's more bleach, but it's pretty clean. So I'm happy with that. We're going to put this one to the side. Everything here is nice and clean, right? And we'll make it even a little bit prettier when we're done. So next step, like I said, is we're just going to clean up the magneto as well, and we'll get the carburetor cleaned up, and I think then we'll run it, and we'll see how it runs, and then maybe we'll go in and we'll check the valves then. But let's do the carburetor first. All right, we got the double blade on now, so I already balanced this. See how they lock together? All right, so you got, this is your top mulch, cuts it again, and then this is the wing, and then this is the bottom blade. This is what does the lawn cutting. Make sure all these surfaces are clean, because you can cock a blade. Doesn't take much to throw it out of balance. And the other thing I like to do is I threw some chain wax into here, into this bushing, and flip it around the other way, and put some chain wax in there. Let it settle in. And you want to give it a few minutes. So this is the side I did first. I'm going to drop it down, take the carburetor off, and we'll flip it around the other way. Put a little bit on that side, and then we'll come back later and we'll use gravity as well to get some more chain wax. Chain lube is better to start off with, and oil, because you got to get it down and in that bushing. It's a kind of a bearing. And everything else looks good. I don't see any issues. Look how clean it is. All right, and this is what it looks like. So I lubricated all around here with my tranny sauce. I'll pull this off. What can happen is these things can get stuck. These carburetors get stuck on these studs. So I'm just kind of lubricating, and also I want the gaskets to separate. So I'm going to work that off. We got a rod over here. We're going to want to lubricate some of these areas here just a little bit, and all up in here as well. You can see this is all the cable mechanism and everything for the brake. It's got a band style brake, very nice brake. They don't do that anymore. And then we're also going to pull this off here, so we'll see the configuration there. I got a beautiful plug there, right? Take that out, and we know it runs because I know it runs because I fed some fuel into it, pulled it over, and kept it running for a little bit. And I think I did that off camera. So let me get that carb off and check on a few other things, and then we'll be good to go. Now this one has a bowl drain on it. Notice where it's clocked, about 11 o'clock. I would pull it a little bit more. But it should be okay. Let's pull that bowl off. Well, somebody's been hacking at that nut. I just locked it in the vise, careful like, and spun it out. It's not too bad. It's got some debris on it. It's not bad at all. Alright, I'm going to give this thing a good wash, a good cleaning. And one of the things that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put a mark, turn this in here, and see how far in it goes. That's your stop for your idle. And then we'll take it out, and then you can get this jet out. That's your idle jet. So we want to get to all of that. So let me give it a good wash first. So I decided to show you guys a couple of quick things about doing a carburetor. These are different, right? A little different. I already started cleaning it out. It's not bad. We're going to get in here with a wire brush and just remove anything that's in that slot, sort of recess here. Right, to start off with. And this is just like, you can use a brass, or these are cheap. You can buy them at dollar stores, whatever. And just to kind of get in here, kind of clean it out a little bit. And we have to get the jet out. I got the jet out already, and I made a screwdriver for it. So you have to cut the shoulders down on a good long screwdriver. I like a nice long screwdriver. They offer more torque because the rod twists a bit. And that allows you a bit more torque. So this is what I use. I just ground it down here. Maybe a little dark. I don't want to bring the lighting up too much. But as you twist it, it sort of tweaks a little. So get the jet out, and we're going to bore that out a little bit. I'll show you that in a bit. It's probably, these are very fine jets, and my fine little guy here won't go through it. So we're going to actually just open her up a little bit. I'll show you that in a bit. This is, you have to push out the emulsion tube, so you may have to, I use a pick. So what you do is you take a screwdriver and shove it in here, and just like that, give it a kick down. If it moves, great. If it doesn't want to go all the way, push it back in, lubricate it real good, get some solvent in it, keep moving it. And you can see there's junk all over it, all the way around it. So it was not working. And you're going to need a very fine poker. Now in this poker, this generally goes through most of them. This is just a kit I picked up on Amazon. You can use a number of things. You can use, if you got a welder and you have one of those tip cleaners, good idea. So, and then these here are really small. What I find works with those, I still have one. I need to get out a few more. But on the Tecumseh carburetors, right, you get these little keepers that hold the needle in. And generally speaking, these go in pretty good. Okay? So I'm going to go work my way around, and then I'm going to run my ramrod down through the center and then blow it. With compressed air. Just want to make sure that these all, this one here in particular, so this is what mixes the fuel and the air together into a mist, kind of like your spray bottles do at the end of the nozzle there. It's an emulsifier. Just poking in each one. They look clean, but still. Could be a little piece of something. And we'll find the one that fits down in here. The biggest one possible. Yeah, see, there we go. And then we can take our gum out. Here it is here. Good for my needle nose. Give it a good spray. All right, now I'm going to blow it with some compressed air. Low pressure air, about 30 pounds. I can see that there's gack on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this in a bit of acid. I'll show you that in a minute. So you could use, this is Alumabrite, but you can use a bit of vinegar. I'm just going to let that soak, and you can also put your jet in. And somebody's been in this because they've been tweaking at it. Let me just blow it real quick. All right, we'll let that sit in there too for a little bit. And then if you want, you can Scotch-Brite that emulsion tube. And then this guy we're going to clean and dump it in there too. So to clean these, I just put them down on the table. Kind of hold it. That guy, somebody really screwed that one up. And then I take my wire brush and I just keep turning it a little bit and go over it. This is steel, so it'll rust a little. Be careful with the gasket that's there. That gasket might even loosen up after you do this. But you want to get all this debris and rust off of it. Yeah, somebody really mangled this up. Fortunately, they didn't mangle it too far, but somebody tried to get in here. And maybe they just gave up using the wrong tools. Quick wash. Blow it. And I like to make sure there's no oils or anything on it. Because when we put it in the acid won't work if there's any oil on it. So you want to get these things clean. That's not bad. All right. Just a little bit and just, 15, 20 minutes while I'm doing other things. So then I took the big brush after I got the emulsion tube out because there was so much junk in there, and I run it in a bunch of times, a little bit of gum out. We'll spray it again. Okay. And then we'll blow it. Now we want to run this guy in. So just want to pick a spot. So we just want to count how far to come out. So let's run this in and see. Oh, it was barely out. It shouldn't be. Somebody cranked it too far. We may have to adjust that. I would bring it out about 2 turns. Yeah, somebody was in on this thing. Now over here, right, there is actually an aisle adjustment. You could cut that off, but generally I don't play with that. Usually it's okay if we can get this cleaned out well, and we'll just pry up a little bit. You could also pull it up. All right, and there's a little bit of gook on that. I can see it. Not much. Looks like somebody may have damaged. Yeah, somebody damaged the O-ring, I think. Oh, great. Well, this is what happens. People get into things. Yeah, somebody wasn't paying attention here. I'm not sure what happened over here. I think they damaged the O-ring. All right, I'm going to have to find another one. Yeah, somebody damaged that O-ring. They didn't put it in right. That O-ring is gacked. So it won't run right. All right, let me see. Although the port looks good. I'm going to go through my Honda Carbs, and I'll try to find another one of those as well. What's this in here? Just want to kind of poke through. So in the meantime, all right, we can at least blow this out. Oh yeah, there was junk in there. Not bad though. A little attention to detail goes a long way. I think that's all we need to do here. Right? We got all the ports. Everything moves. All right, so I'm just going to blow this out. I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, so I went through a bunch of my parts, and I often say that these early engines, in fact, really all of the Honda engines are Kohler engines, right? It's the same design, especially in the early days. So this is ours. And if you look at the configuration, and let me pick up this one here. So this is for a bigger motor, but this is a Kohler carburetor. Let me turn up the brightness just a little bit. I don't want it too bright, like I said. So notice it drops in here, right? That's the control arm. Here's your idle over here, over here. Okay, this one just has it blocked off, but it's the same thing over here. All right, the control arm for the throttle drops in here. It's the same thing, okay? Everything is the same. This is just a bigger carburetor, like I said, and it has a straight pipe here. It's for a bigger engine. Same kind of bowl, same kind of nut. In fact, here's a new nut. I'll show you this carburetor. This is a smaller Kohler carburetor, and this is essentially the same size, same configuration. Right? So this is actually a drop-in replacement. It's really the same thing everywhere, really. There's no difference. And also, it's a staggered bolt arrangement. Since this one's already been pickled, it's missing the jet. And it's in good shape. We got a new gasket here. We got a different gasket that's in nice shape. So we're going to grab a bunch of things from this. The bowl it's got a bit of rot in it. It's no better or worse than what we have. So that's that. And a little bit later, I want to show you the valve cover. All right, so you'll be like, oh, okay. So this is actually a Honda carburetor, and this is what you would find very similar on anything that's out there today. This one could use a little bit of cleaning. I'm going to put it away. It's very different. Of course, they did have some different configurations, but it is very different. This is where the idle circuit is in here. Some of them had an adjuster over here, or over here maybe. The better ones did. All right, same thing, Honda carburetor. It's not staggered bolt arrangement, very different. So let me clean up a little bit. I want to put away my Honda stuff. And when you get to the valve cover, you'll see. You'll be like, oh, it's Kohler. Yeah, it's Kohler, right? It may have just been rebranded. I don't know if they had an arrangement with Kohler that they just restamped these things or they just copied it dimension to dimension. Lots of people do things like that. And the Japanese in the early days were not beyond doing something like that. So I don't know if you guys know, but I can tell you it's Kohler, all right? By and large, the carburetor castings are basically the same. You know, they can have, this is a Keihin Japan original equipment for what we're working on. And this one, I believe, is also, this is Keihin Japan as well. So same carburetor manufacturer. Later on, it would say Kohler on it. And so a little bit later, this says Kohler on it. You probably can't see it, but it says Kohler here. Same stuff, all right? Remember, Kohler's been around, I want to say late 1800s. They started making pumps and motors and things for pumping water and out of coal mines and small stuff for farmers and gasoline, mostly diesel, initially like hit and miss, and then they got into some small diesels. And so they've been around for a long time, long before anything Japanese. All right, like I said, let me clean up. We'll be right back. All right, let's put this puppy back together. All right, so I got the jet, and what I have is an 020 drill bit in there, and it cleaned up pretty good. I'm going to go next size up because they tend to be small, and not for nothing, things change. Motors get out of adjustment, you know, they get older. So we're going to take an 0225, and this is really small, fellas. So let's chuck that up in our pin vise. And we're just going to open it up a little bit, and this will ensure that there's nothing in here that's going to cause a problem, right? Let's see. Hopefully this bit will cut. And we're just taking off like a thou-ish. There we go. Okay? And then spin it. They're getting dull. I need to get some new ones. And run it through a few times and then blow it out. This way you don't have a burr. All right, so we got this all nice and clean. See how nice and clean it all makes? And put a little, if you want, a little Scotch Brite over it real quick. Just give it a twist. Okay, I'm ready. Now we're just going to take our time. So I like to use my tranny sauce. That's my mix. And just get everything lubricated nice. I'm going to drop that in, right? Notice which way it goes. See this barrel here? That goes in. And then this is the bottom. That's where the jet connects. So that goes in. We're going to drop our jet in. And when you're taking it out, make sure the driver bit is clean. When you're taking it out, you'll notice it'll get stuck about here. And this little hole I use, as I'm trying to screw it out, you got to pry with a little pin or something to kind of nudge it out the rest of the way. Sometimes they fall out, but most of the time that's what I do. They just, and like I was saying earlier, I'll show you, right, just snug it, right, and then the top end of that barrel, which will be in here, you could just about see it here, right. With the jet out, you can kind of grab a screwdriver, put your blade over it, and then sort of cock it and push it, and it'll pop back. We're talking about the emulsion tube. It'll pop back, and then you may have to push it in again with something, and then lubricate it and clean it and do it a few times, because it should just fall out, but junk might be holding it. So we're good there. Everything is blowed out with low pressure air. Let's grab our needle. Did I lose that? Looks like I did. Moving stuff around and the wind blowing and everything. Yep, I got it. All right, let's just make sure this is clean. Right, these have these rubber seats. I don't know if they're Viton or not, but it's kind of located as part of the bowl, which is nice. The float, rather. And let's just pin that in. All right, and we'll check it. But it should be laying about flush if you're looking down. It's sealing, so we're okay. And then we got to lay our O-ring in there, and it's got to lay in that groove. You may have to kind of pull it in until it sort of snaps in, or just, you know, locks into place. Done there. And then we're going to take, this is the front of the carb, and I wanted to clock this, yeah, something like, it was about there. I want to clock it more about here, honestly. Okay, and then I got the better bolt. I cleaned the bolt up with the washer. The washer came off. This is the better one that we took off the other carburetor. Let's just make sure everything goes in well. Even this one's a little beat up. People seem to have a hard time, probably because they're using the wrong wrench. It's 10 millimeter. Give it a good tightening. Make sure it's fit and flush. And let's put a little bit of lubricant on this guy too. Right, this is our empty the bowl. That's your little tap there, purge it, get out junk. Give that a good tight. Now we're almost done. So here is the one that we took out. This is sort of like an idle jet. It's got a tiny little hole, usually in here, and it's got these other transfer holes there. And the O-ring is, you're not going to be able to see it, but it's so small. It has to be just right. So I put a little bit of my tranny sauce on it, and we'll put a little tranny sauce down in the hole. And I have an O-ring kit, but yeah, good luck. You really want the correct piece. And I don't trust the other one. Somebody was fooling around with it. See how it just snapped right in? That's what it'll do. And now we've got another one of these. So we're gonna, I found that it was five turns out. So let's turn it all the way in, because somebody, you know, borked this, probably to try to compensate. And so now we're just gonna, nice and light, okay? And now let's just turn it. Oh, let me get all the grease off my hands. I like it a little higher. I'm trying to find it. So we can do about 4.5 turns out. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and about a half. That's fine. Okay. A lot better than being jammed in all the way. The further in it goes, the higher up the bottom RPM is going to be. Right. The further out you pull it, the lower the RPM is going to be. That's why I went about 4. Okay. 4, a little more than 4. And that should put us pretty much to stock. This looks good. Everything is moving. Okay. And we have another one just in case. Kohler. All right. Another one just in case. All right. Turn it upside down. Blow into it. It's locking up good. Now let's turn it the regular way. Yeah, it's working. All right. Let's put that on. All right, that's what it looks like. Okay, now I like to put chain lube around all of these mechanisms, right, that are going to move. You can also use chain wax, but chain will get in there and, you know, like on a chain, it'll gel up. Chain wax will wax up almost more like a dry lube. You might want to try chain lube first and then wax. Everything's back on. I think we're ready to go. I'm just going to check the gap on this, make sure these are tight. This will clean itself. That's auto cleaning because of the band over here. We're going to put some lube in this too and pull it through this side and also on the other side. While the hose was off, right, the feeder hose, I blew through both ends. Okay, if you want to really clean it out, you can put, you know, squirt a little gas in there and blow it through. Just trying to think of anything else. And I want to just check that gap real quick. And we're going to pull the plug, all right, and clean the plug up and take a peek in there in a minute. And then I'll put all this back. Well, it's not bad. A little bit of water in it, probably from pressure washing. So I put my tranny fluid mix down that hole in the spark plug hole, but she's beautiful. We're just going to clean it, give it a quick clean. And rinse and gap it to about 28, 30. 28, better. Yeah, it needed to be gapped. Isn't that nice? A little bit of no seas on it. Remember, this has got a washer on it. So when you go to tighten it down, if you put a new one in, and this is nice NGK, so there's no reason to replace it. But when you go to tighten it down for the first time, it's going to feel like it's stripping. And go a little bit more. Just go slow, go easy. You'll feel it. It's a feel thing. Gapped it to 28. It was over about 32. That's a little high, especially for these little motors. All right, fellas, looking pretty good so far. All right, let me pull the bail back, and we're just going to start on its own. No additional help. Whatever little bit I shot into the plug hole of my tranny fluid mix is, you know, all we need. We just want to make sure it works on its own. All right, so I'm going to push the throttle forward to choke. And it closes the choke. I can see it down there. Let's give it a pull. Oh, here's something. Let's pull the choke out a little bit. It's trying. Might need a little bit more choke. You know, she hasn't run in a long time, you know, really. See. Yeah, she's struggling.
Moments later.
Oh, let's see. Choke is open. She wants to come up. It feels like the RPMs are not up. So something might be not right with the RPMs. All right, let's give it a little help. There'll be water in it too.
Many months later.
All right, so we're going to clean these pads, and then there are these bushings. And then we're going to clean all this up so that we're making a good contact, nice and clean. And we may want to check this too, although my ohm meter is crap, but we want to check this just to make sure. But it is sparking. And then we'll clean somewhere on here, you'll see. We'll clean these guys. They're not bad. Put it all back to 10,000s, and then I think we're going to take this off and take a peek in here. I'm not ready to say that it's the carburetor. It could also have been more gook had gotten in than we wanted it to get in. She's been tossed and turned, and she hadn't run, and just by squirting stuff into that carburetor before I started cleaning it, you know, it could be a number of things. So let's do that, and I'll be back. For a simple task like this, I just like to use the cookie. All right, and now we'll have good connection, and we'll be able to get a good tight gap. Everything cleaned up here. Also over here, see? All right, let me put it together, and we're gonna do 10,000s, and like I said, we'll move to this. All right, it looks real clean in here. I don't see anything weird. I'm gonna run it through and check it. Even the oil looks like it's decent in here. Okay, look at that. That's not bad. And it smells okay too. At least what's up in here. So I like what I see so far. Let me go quick run through that, and we'll be back. Okay, so I did this one. This one is really loose. This is the exhaust. I will try to remember to leave the spec sheet up. This is in millimeters, but in inches, the intake is close to 1,000. It's just enough so that there's some clearance. And this is just a little bit bigger, maybe 1,500. But there's a pretty big range, though, in the spec. If you look at, they don't really have the spec in inches for this motor, but for the other motors they do. They list it in millimeters, and so when you kind of compare, you can see. I got to do this one now, and then we're going to put the new cover on, the better looking cover, and I think then we'll be ready for another test. All right, so 10 millimeter on the locking nut. That's the smaller one, and the outer nut is 14. And so you kind of, I have a number of videos on doing this. You kind of want to work against the two lock nuts. As you turn the lock nut, it's going to change the dimension a little bit in here in the valve lash. So it's a bit of technique. I made it a little bit tight on the intake, and it wound up. So then, since the lock nut wasn't really super tight, I backed off the larger nut, which is the fulcrum nut. It's the nut that is part of the fulcrum for the rocker. And I pulled it kind of clockwise out, keeping the lock nut in place. And that gave me a bit more clearance and tightened everything up a bit. On the other side, I had to go the other way because I had to turn the outer nut in a little bit in the fulcrum to tighten up. Because intake you can be a little tighter because there's going to be more movement on the exhaust, right? Exhaust will be a little bit bigger because it gets hotter, so it'll expand a little bit more. So the clearance is just a little bit larger on the exhaust. And the intake, like I said, I turned the outer one in a little bit with the lock nut and tighten it all up that way. And so you got to learn a little bit of technique for it. Let's close this up. I think we're good to go. All right, so I got my spacers in here, and I had to tweak the threads on this a little bit. Plus, I had to run a millimeter tap into this nut. Like I said, somebody's been in here. Now, the next thing I'm seeing is no matter which way I push the throttle, this is jammed. Okay, this is absolutely jammed, and like I said, there's somebody been in here. So I got to find out. It's forcing it to idle, so it's not going to run. It's not going to start like that. Not after all this time. So I may have to take this top back off, but let me see what I turn up. Somebody, see, there it is. Oh, that kind of popped out. Let's see if we can push it back in. I may have to pull the carburetor out to do that a little bit. All right, let me get both hands on that and find out what's going on. See, it wants to move, but something's got it locked up here, so let's see what's going on. All right, so I had to tweak this rod here. This had been bent, and it was leaning up against the engine. I gave it a bit more clearance, and you can see now. Now the bail is released. All right, so she's trying to shut the engine off. See, that's up against the idle stop, and when you manipulate down here, this is your governor arm, governor spring control down there, the governor inside working against each other. So we're going to try to open up the throttle. Right, opens up good. And then when I let go of this, right, because it's trying to shut the engine off or to get to the point of idle, it's going to release. And I noticed it wasn't even returning all the way. So it was hanging up over here. It can touch it a little bit, but it was leaning hard. So that seems fine. And now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go pull the bail back. Right, this is fine here. I'll pull the bail back. You'll see the choke butterfly close. So we'll come back in a minute. Let me go do that. Okay, so now the bail is pulled back, and I've got it tied back with some Velcro. And I have it set to slow, and notice there's some opening there. That will change. Let me get a screwdriver, hold on. All right, just so you can see. See the gap here? So it's off idle, and I have, remember this is manual throttle, so that's up there, it's set to slow. Okay, now let me come back and let me move the throttle forward. All right, we're going to fast. That's fast. She's opened up that throttle. Let's feel it. Good, got clearance here. And now the governor inside the engine and that spring down there, those are going to work against each other to try to manipulate the throttle angle that it wants, right? And there's some adjustments here for all of this as well, okay? Now we can get to all of this, which is nice. We don't know what he did down here. He may have screwed up all this stuff, so we'll adjust that once it's running. Now, notice it's still open, so she's trying to get full throttle. Now let's go to choke. Okay, good. So we have choke. All right, let me just give it a quick inspection, and then we'll put it back together again, and we'll drag it out. Choke's on. All right, let's give it a pull. Fuel's on. Look at that RPM. Hold on, let's see what it is. Listen to that. $19.10 to $19.20. That's perfect. Let's bring it in. Sweet. Right? So I'll show you when I get in, but I adjusted the high to about 32, a little bit under. You could hear it. That's enough. It's old. Okay, so on this model here, this screw, the lower one, right, I backed it out a little bit, allowing this to come in and touch and travel a little bit further. All right, and then that in turn allows a little bit more RPM. So what you're doing is you're allowing this to come back. Let me see if I can show you that. All right, so there's a detent on the handle, and you kind of want to make sure that it sort of falls into place. So as you push forward on the handle going faster, right, to increase the RPM, and that detent starts to lock in, you want to be touching that screw. And the further it goes, the more tension it puts on this spring. And the more tension that puts on the spring, the more it pulls against the governor, forcing it. Because the governor is spinning centrifugal force by the engine, and it's trying to reduce the RPM, and you're trying to fight that and overcome it just enough to create an equilibrium. By loosening this screw up a little bit, this whole mechanism comes forward a little bit more, putting a little bit more tension on the spring, thus pulling a little bit more on the governor arm in here, and thus opening up the throttle a little bit more, and that's how I got a little bit more RPM out of it. So all of this requires a bit of adjustment, right? We have another stop over here for idle. That was great. That was about 1900. This thing idles like just oh, smooth. Purrs like a kitten, this thing. Let me put the cover back on, and we got a few more things to do. We're going to do a cleanup on it. The next thing is I already did lubricate in here, but I might want to put a little bit of grease and a little bit of chain wax in everything down into the adjuster areas, because I just put some oil after I washed it, and to make sure that we didn't have any issues. This is coming out, right? Hopefully I didn't lose the other one. So I didn't tighten everything up, and yeah, we're okay. So that's what I want to do now. We got fresh oil in it. Now, don't forget, I washed these out with the pressure washer because they were filthy. But then I put oil, and you could see how it picked up a lot of the rust. And I'm going to wipe that out and blow some chain wax in. They do sell these bearings. You can also take them out, wash them, if you really want to get more use out of it. We're going to put some grease on that, and we're going to blow some chain wax in here, in between there. And we'll do the same thing over here, right? Because it's the same scenario back here. And like I said, we already got some oil in, but you know, that's mostly because I washed this stuff. I think this one's stuck, so I got to drive that one off. All right, so bushing here, we can get chain wax in there, and or chain loop also in this seam, and it's already moving good, but you can hear it's crunchy, right? So we want to get something decent in there. It's moving okay. I'm just trying to do it one hand, and the body's moving. A little wax on that because it gets stuck. This actually got stuck on the shaft, but we're okay. And of course I got it in here, and then I wipe it out. You're going to get junk in. And you know, for me, it's not worth taking this apart. But if it was yours, you could take it all apart. It's very difficult to take apart on units with power drive on it. Very difficult, and they get stuck real bad, and you can't pull them backwards. But this one probably a bit easier. I don't know. I don't think I've had one of these apart, and if I did, it's been a long time. And the oil's not terrible. You know, now that it's kind of dirty, see? You can almost see through it. It's settled, and you could see when it was settled, it looked almost like it was kind of clean. It's still got lubricity to it. Lubricity? Listen, fellas, it's a nice machine, right? This thing's mint. It is really nice. I'm very fortunate to have picked this one up. Thanks, Mike. This one was kind of thrown in a while back. I wound up having the extra wheel. Remember, we replaced this cover, right? The rusty cover, right? Kohler. It's not a clone. It's well, I guess you could say it's a clone, or it could just be a restamp. Whatever. Licensing agreement. This is a nice old machine. It's not an old machine, fellas. Right? It's not old. It's like me. Okay. It's well seasoned. All right, Arch, keep bringing it on. Listen. All right, this thing's nice. Look at this thing. This thing's mint. I'm gonna ask like $200 for it, which is not a lot, really, but it's a lot. Like for my area, it's a lot. Got a beautiful bag. I got an extra bag. I got a couple extra wheels. I got rid of a lot of these. A lot of times they crack. Throw them out. This one is not cracked. There's no cracks. I would own it. I gotta sell it. I gotta sell it because I need the coin, right? I'm gonna ask, like I said, like $200. Fellas, I'd love to keep it, right? It's breaking my heart. You guys are watching me breaking my heart because I'd love to just keep the damn thing, right? It's nice. Look at the handles, nice and everything. We'll get a closer look at that. Let me go bring it outside. I gotta take some pictures. Put it up for sale later on. The other one I just did sold right away. Some of these things they sell like within hours. But we got to find the right buyer for this. This is somebody that wants, you know, it's got adjustable handle. I don't know where the adjustment is. It's like, on mine there's a pin. And this one, I don't know what's going on with it. I think you loosen it up here or something. Mine has got a twisty turny thing and you can adjust it on the fly. This one, like the machine I just sold, like a lot of the Craftsmans that I like, slightly older ones, like you take the bolt out, you put it where you want it, and put the bolt back in. It's got a really nice throttle control on it. You saw the idle, right? That was beautiful. That was so sweet and smooth. Really tight on the valve specs. I'll put that info in. Please remind me if I don't. But I got it. I set it aside. Came with an air filter, right? Automatic tune-up. Everything is clean. Those blades are sweet, right? Those are nice blades. I pulled the set aside. I was looking around. I'm like, I got a whole bunch of them, but I'm like, all right, let me do, for those of you that watch my Honda Spring sort of freshy up, you know, I went and ground up the lawn today, first gun of the season. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching this episode of Arch's Garage, and, you know, hit the like button, fellas. Subscribe, and, you know, leave a comment. I'll see you guys later.